line. Jordan, my first question for you. Do you believe in sports jinxes? Are they real?
Ooh. I would say that when we're talking about no-hitters or perfect games in particular, while I don't believe in the jinxes, I do enjoy the gymnastics of talking around it.
Sure,
I think that
I can accept.
I think just being like, hey, turn the blank on, turn this game on. This guy's throwing pretty well tonight. I don't know if you noticed.
That's fun.
I prefer that
game
version
happening.
Than getting too angry about mentioning what is happening.
All right, well, let's talk about the return of George while we're just on the topic. Obviously, making his season debut today against the Astros. We know that they're going to look at reining him in around 80 pitches, between 70 and 80 or so. I am so surprised, Jordan, by where the Mariners have been able to get not just without George, without Logan, right? With Luis Castillo previously being a bit up and down right now without Bryce, a number of injuries to these arms. Finally, they're getting him back. Do your expectations for this team, granted, George Kirby hasn't had a spring training, it's going to be a slow start, but do your expectations change a bit now?
Yeah, I mean, it's certainly when you start looking ahead and you're saying, okay, now they're going to get these guys back. Now we've already seen Brash kind of fold into the mix here and the impact that he's made. Yeah, it's hard not to get excited about that. I think there are still some real questions about Bryce Miller, about Luis Castillo, the version that we've seen, that still kind of leave this rotation in a state that it was not in a year ago. But no, you got to be excited about George Kirby coming back. I mean, he has been so rock solid for them since he's been in the big leagues, and I think he's an interesting case too because he looks awesome as a rookie. He makes an all-star team in his second season, and then last year it wasn't a bad season, but when that standard is so high, it's like you keep expecting that trajectory to continue, and frankly, that didn't happen last year. Again, it was a good season. He still had the best command in Major League Baseball. But I think with George Kirby's progression, if he stays right where he is, if he returns to what he has been the last couple of years, that's an incredible pitcher to add to your staff. I don't want to be mistaken for anything other than that. At the same time, because the talent is so great, you do wonder if there is another level for him, the way that Logan Gilbert kind of reached last year and seemed to be reaching this year before his injury.
Cal's season, it's interesting, right? Because you look at his numbers, and the only thing that sticks out are the bombs that he's hitting, right? The average isn't great, but we don't expect that. That's not what he's here to do. How do you put the season that he's having in context? Is there something you can compare it to? Paint the picture for a person who doesn't really understand what we're seeing with Cal.
Man, I mean, it's as simple as, well, okay, so you mentioned, all right, well, the average isn't great. Well, it's higher than it's ever been. So that's one thing, at least in terms of Cal. If Cal's going to hit 250 or even 240, that is a step up from where it's been in the past with him. So you could say that is an improvement. But let's focus on the home runs. You could say, oh, well, it's just a bunch of home runs. Well, catchers are not supposed to be leading baseball in home runs. That's not supposed to be part of their game, really, at any point. And while we've seen him, hit 30 home runs or close to it each of the last 3 seasons, I mean, the pace he's on right now is ridiculous. And for me, the thing is just how much more consistent he's been. This really started last year, but how much more impactful he's become right-handed. I would say there's so many things you can talk about with Cal Raleigh's progression, but you normally with switch hitters, it's pretty lopsided. You have one side that is producing a lot more than the others, and early in his career, that was the case with him too. You really only felt like he was able to do damage lefty, but last couple of years, that's really changed. I know on the whole, maybe the on-base and the batting average is still going to be worse on the right side, but he has managed to continue hitting a lot of huge home runs right-handed, which earlier in his career, I never really thought would be a massive part of his game.
What's so impressive, too, is he's obviously a phenomenal catcher, right? And I think people from afar, if they knew nothing about Cal Raleigh, would go, maybe the assumption would be that you must be lacking in some area. There must be a point of weakness with your game. If you're excellent, at the plate, how are you behind the dish or whatever? But he has just grown into an amazing, multifaceted weapon for this team.
Yeah, I would point out, and some people have sort of noticed this, he has been a little bit worse at controlling the running game this year. That's something that he had certainly been elite at recently. Still a great blocker, great framer, and I'm sure his command of the pitching staff and guiding this pitching staff through games is still well beyond any amount of base running that he's stolen bases and stuff like that. I'm not as worried about that, but it is, again, if we're nitpicking for a season that if the season ended today, he might be an MVP finalist. it's just, I guess, worth pointing out. But that's the standard we're holding him to at this point, which is pretty amazing.
Early in Julio's career, I mean, it's still early in his career, but, they were aggressive. The Mariners are aggressive as a team on the backs, stealing bases or whatnot, but it doesn't seem like they're sending Julio as much. I think him and Dumper got around the same amount of stolen bases, which is crazy. Is that on purpose? Do you think they should send him more? What do you see there?
Yeah, that is an interesting one. I know there was a lot of discussion earlier on in the season about how aggressive they were on the base paths and how many stolen bases they had. And again, that was some players that were healthy before that were maybe not as much now. Guys like Robles, guys like Ryan Bliss, Dylan Moore is someone we've seen. Randy, I believe Randy's a perfect 9 for 9 this season, but he's kind of picked his spots. With guys like Julio, it's hard because it's in there. It's not a matter of ability. I think the casual fan probably underrates just the risk involved from a physical and durability standpoint of stealing bases as often as some guys do. Now some players clearly don't care, and that's admirable and fun to watch when the Otanis of the world, Acuna, Ellie De La Cruz are just running. So I don't know with Julio whether it has been an approach thing, whether it has been a conscious decision, whether he just hasn't been feeling like as dangerous of a base runner. The speed seems generally fine to me. I'm not exactly sure how StatCast grades it out, but it is interesting to see him and Cal have the same number at this stage. I agree. It is at least a little bit surprising.
Feel free to step back from Seattle for your answer here. Do you have, out of curiosity, like a pet peeve baseball conversation? Something where when people start talking about it, you go, where's my soapbox? Like, I need to get on this thing.
Oh, man. Yeah, we're lucky enough to have a podcast we do 3 times a week. We do a lot of stuff that gets us a little bit. We have a lot of things. I don't know. I think, we've been talking about this over these past week or so with Juan Soto has got me kind of exhausted in terms of some of that conversation. I think that's another one where we see a lot of kind of portraying or projecting what we assume to be the case onto players because things are off the field, things are so outsized or so different or so impactful. I generally, I'd rather do as much as I can to just keep the focus on what's happening on the field from this team. Because listen, that's interesting in and of itself. I just wrote a little about Yahoo today about the Red Sox Mets series and how Juan Soto is looking. And it is interesting, but I think that's interesting because it's Juan Soto, the baseball player, and not because of everything that has kind of led to this point in terms of which team he picked for, $800 million.
Is the theory people are having, is it mostly Yankees fans projecting like, oh, he's regretting it, or tensions are bad, or they don't want him anymore?
Yeah, it's stuff like that. Silly, really, honestly, to me, it's even more so. This was even a thing is being like, oh, look, he looks unhappy here for 2 seconds and he doesn't look like he's smiling in the dugout in the same way that he was before. It's like, listen, if you want to try and be, body language doctor here to an extreme degree, I just can't relate to that at all. I'd rather try and take away what they are actually giving us from a statistical standpoint.
Yeah, I feel you. Some people look at me like, why are you mad? I go, I'm good. Like, what are you talking about?
It's just my face.
I'm just chilling.
I'm just here.
I'm just chilling.
I'm just here.
Getting back to Kirby, Stacy asked me to start the show, like, all right, what do you expect from Kirby? What do you want to see? And to me, I just want to see him find his rhythm, find his timing, hit his spots. Like, a win will be great, but it's more important that he just gets through this healthy and he looks good. What should people expect from Kirby? Do they want him to go out there? I'm sure they want him to go out there and perform. It'd be great, but let's be real. This is his first start.
Yeah, it is, and I think the fact that it's in Houston, right, it feels like it carries more weight, and I know we've seen George have a good amount of success against Houston in the past. I think what's been encouraging is that if you look at his numbers, not necessarily the stats, but if you look at the stuff in AAA, you look at the velocity, you look at the pitch mix, it's looked like George Kirby, right? We got the 2 fastballs, we got the slider, we got the splitter, he's thrown it, all the velo all looks about as you'd expect, and so I think you'd hope, especially against this Astros offense right now, which is certainly not the Astros offenses that we've seen George kind of take over in the past, he should be able to pound the zone against them a good bit. Now we'll see how they approach. There are some new faces in this lineup, right? Like Christian Walker, Isaac Paredes, who's been just fantastic for them recently. I think I can imagine Paredes becoming someone that annoys Mariners, which is funny, right? He was someone that was kind of in the discourse as someone that the Mariners might be targeting. He's been a fantastic fit in Houston. I can imagine him coming up big at some point during this series. But anytime you have a 4-game set in Houston, it's going to be a big deal, and Kirby at least has the opportunity to kind of set the tone there.
Okay, so you've answered quite a bit of this already, but I just wanted to keep diving into it. We've already seen this Houston team once this year, but it's early enough in the season where I'm trying to pin down exactly who everyone is in the AL West still and kind of what we can expect. Unfortunately, I have seen the very best versions of the Astros, and they are tied to some of my worst memories. So what's still very much there when it comes to Houston? Like, hey, this is, this guy's still here, or this thing they do well is still very much real, and you got to watch out for it. And where might be some of the soft spots, the Achilles heels that this team has found themselves having?
That's a good way to think about it. That's because, this roster has changed a good bit. We're not watching Carlos Correa anymore. We're not watching Kyle Tucker. We're not watching Alex Bregman. Some of the guys who have been there, I mentioned Paredes as a new one. Jeremy Pena is having a really nice season. That's another one, again, tied to a not-so-pleasant memory for Seattle, obviously.
Yeah.
But I will say, that incredible run that Jeremy Pena had in 2020-22, that really didn't sustain over the next few seasons, and I think it kind of created an outsized perception of how good of a player he was. But this year, he's kind of started to look more like that all-around superstar that it felt like he was trending towards. Some of their other homegrown guys have not been quite as consistent. I mean, Altuve's, it's been a quiet season relatively so far. Christian Walker hasn't totally settled in. Yainer Diaz has kind of taken a pretty big step back. Jake Myers, inexplicably, I mean, Astros outfield was a big question coming into the year. He's been really, really good, and he's always been a good defender, so that's been kind of a pleasant surprise for them. And then on the mound, I mean, Framber Valdez remains one of the best pitchers in the league, and then Hunter Brown has just taken that step. Hunter Brown has always had kind of that stuff, and it's funny, again, thinking back to 2022, that's back when he was a rookie too as well, and you kind of saw it and you're like, man, could this be this next great Astros pitcher? I mean, we are really seeing it. We sort of saw it in the second half of last year, but we are really starting to see this year as well. And then the bullpen is interesting just because Hader, of course, is a relatively recent addition. Abreu is still a mainstay. And then it's a lot of really random, like totally anonymous guys, some of which have been very, very effective, some of which it's been a little bit weaker. As far as I can tell, no Jordan in this series, so he's also been kind of bad for pretty much the first time in his career. Whether that's tied to his injury, I'm not sure. But it's, the Astros still have some good players that will annoy you, but it is not anywhere close to the juggernaut that they have been in years past.
All right, Jordan, before we let you go, tell listeners where they can find more from you and what's on the latest episode of Baseball Barbie-cast.
Yeah, so we actually recorded on Thursday. Normally we're Monday, Wednesday, Friday, but just 2 shows this week. So you can listen to our first look at the awards coming in, do a first little awards check-in on this Thursday edition, as well as recapping Red Sox Mets. And then next week, my co-host Jake will be visiting me here in Ohio as the Los Angeles Dodgers are taking on the Cleveland Guardians, and Jake's coming in for that series. So a lot of fun stuff coming up on Baseball Barbie-cast, and you can read all my work at Yahoo Sports.
He is Yahoo Sports Jordan Shusterman. Thank you, Jordan.
Thanks, Jordan.
Thanks, guys.